Hello and welcome once again to episode 112 of Code Completion. We are a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code. My name is Dimitri and I'll be your host once again for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionist, Spencer.
Hey there.
So Spencer, word out on the street is that all this time you just wanted to sing. Well, now you can.
Yeah, except that's not actually, the word is on the street is very wrong in this case. But if you like to sing, you definitely can. Kind of out of nowhere, I think, they introduced Apple Music Sing, which is like karaoke, basically, on your Apple TV, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure. It's releasing not. I live in Utah. I don't know how sort of popular karaoke is here. I don't think it is. Like, we don't have karaoke bars or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you probably do in California, but I don't know anyone who would use this other than maybe like wants to try it out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's cool for a lot of people, just not for anyone I know.
I think it was an obvious next step because with the Apple Music lyrics that would actually like highlight as the song was going, that was like, well, like now it's just missing a karaoke mode. And it's not quite karaoke. So karaoke is like very typically you have a microphone and that's piped through along with everything else. So this is like not quite there, but it does have separate tracks for all the vocals, so that way you can like choose who you want to sing as. If you want to do duets, if you want the background vocals to still go and you're just the lead, or if you want to be the background and vice versa. So all that is kind of set up for you, and I think that's pretty cool to let people have fun at home. Outside of Japan, I've done karaoke like 3 times. One time was in Australia at someone's house, and that was pretty funny.
Okay.
One time was at a karaoke bar in Japantown, San Francisco. And then like one time, I forget when exactly it was. But those were like all 3 very different experiences from what I experienced in Japan, which was like there's a karaoke place. You have private rooms to go with your friends and like act like idiots, where no one else can see you acting like idiots, which is the ideal time to act like an idiot. So that's like karaoke in isolation without like the stares of people that you don't actually know. This feels like it can do that at home, so I'm like pretty down for that. I don't know if it's going to include any Japanese songs, because turns out those are the only ones that can karaoke, because it's the only like experience that I have. Thank you, anime, for having the same opening song over and over and over again, enough for me to memorize it.
There you go. So they've got, like Dimitri said, adjustable vocals, which is cool, mixed down, the main vocals so you can sing those or whatever. Of course, the real-time lyrics, which kind of already existed, background vocals, and a duet view, which I think is pretty cool. So you can show, it says multiple vocalists show on opposite sides of the screen to make duets or multi-singer tracks easy to sing along to. So it seems like they've actually put quite a bit of thought into this, and I'd assume that they probably had to go to these artists and get versions of the music with different tracks. I don't know enough about sort of audio, if you could rip that out of like their FLAC files if they're in separate tracks already.
I think with the high quality audio that they've been getting, it's all on separate tracks already, and that's probably what enabled them to do this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's either that or some magic machine learning thing that can probably do just as well. Because you don't need anything perfect here. You just need to like isolate the vocals and then be able to duck them if you need to. So
you're going to be screeching over it anyway.
Yeah. And from like experience of like actual karaoke can be like completely different instrumentation for the orchestral part of it. And you're just singing on top of the tune. And like that's all people really care about at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be the original. So I don't think it has to be like a perfect solution where they had the originals. So probably okay, however it is.
Gotcha. Then I guess this makes this last part a little less impressive. I was thinking they were going to every artist, but It says it will be launching a suite of more than 50 dedicated companion playlists, with kind of a variety of different music and stuff. So they've kind of already gone out and like made playlists, so you can just like cue that up and start, singing whatever your genre of choice is. But still kind of cool that they've done that work and not just said like, all right, have fun, see ya.
Yeah, I'd say any track where they already did the live like lyrics is probably already supported. So I have not verified that. I have not put iOS 16.2 on any of my devices. So you can go verify that once it does come out. But that's what I'm gonna guess.
Cool. That's exciting. I don't know if you're interested in it. Let us know how it goes.
Yep, definitely looking forward to trying it at least once, at the very least.
There you go.
And other exciting news, iCloud is getting true end-to-end encryption for most categories, ***. And this is coming via a whole suite of enhancements that are coming out. So what are the first few? Because it's quite a lot that is being updated.
Yeah, so the first one would be advanced data protection. So quoting Apple here, it says, advanced data protection is Apple's highest level of cloud data security, giving the users to protect the vast majority of their most sensitive iCloud data with end-to-end encryption. So this is pretty cool. John Gruber kind of says, continuing that, it's off by default primarily, I believe, for customer support reasons. With like standard iCloud data protection, it's encrypted, but and in storage on iCloud servers. But Apple holds the keys that can be used for recovery. So that's kind of like the whole thing here is making it so that even if Apple were to be hacked or the iCloud servers were to be hacked, you wouldn't be able to do anything. It's all encrypted, and you only have the recovery keys. And I think, I can't remember where it is in this article, but it talks about sort of having a couple ways to like be able to decrypt your information. I think you can have it so it's only on your device, like the decryption keys are only on there. Don't quote me on that one. But
yeah,
another
if you
one
have
is,
a trusted device, then that serves as like your key. And you are able to always get access to your account as long as you have one trusted device. So for those of us who have 17,
yes,
then we have 17 trusted devices, which I guess makes us like bigger targets, because if any one of those, no, I'm just kidding. It should be pretty easy to
lock it on,
like lock and disable, because each device has their own passcode and stuff like that. So, I would say this is probably a big improvement over like Apple having the keys, because at the end of the day, for Apple to be a company that can cater towards regular consumers, they have to hold on to the keys, because regular consumers forget their passwords, they lose their devices, their only device, for instance, and then they're out of luck. So if you are a regular consumer who wants better security, then they're essentially saying, okay, here are the keys, and you can't lose those.
It's in your hands.
It's in your hands. So it's literally the thing in your hand. So your phone becomes your key. Or you get a recovery key, which is a randomly generated 28-character code that is your ultimate backup. And once you have one of those, Apple has no access to your accounts whatsoever. There are like a few cases where they do still have access, things like Contacts, Calendar, and Apple Mail, which are, or iCloud Mail, because those are all like already open iCloud services that you can use other like products to like browse and navigate. So there's no real way to encrypt those. But for absolutely everything else, they are like essentially giving you the keys to your own kingdom, and relinquishing any control that they have, or any liability that they have, I should say. So if your account gets hacked, or if Apple gets hacked, your account, should you choose to go through this path, would be 100% secured, so long as you don't lose those keys, right? But if Apple never gets hacked and you lose all your keys, then you're out of luck. So that's the alternative. So be very careful if you do want this extra security. Determine first if, hey, you need it. And if you do determine that you need it, like find a secure place to have backups of that recovery key, because that's your only way back in if everything else fails.
Yeah.
So
I guess.
Back to the post-it note, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could. No, on that note, I guess you could maybe get like a, what do they call them? Like a safety deposit box in like a bank or something, and like write it in there. I mean, you'd want to write it down. You wouldn't want it on your computer, because then that's sort of not actually at all secure. But you know, if your house burns down and it's written on a piece of paper in your house, then I don't know. I guess you should really. It's less secure, but like almost follow like in a way, the 3-2-1 backup solution of data for this piece of paper, and have it in multiple places and stuff like that. Apple has a great screenshot here of kind of what it will look like in settings, and it says specifically for the advanced data protection we're talking about here. It says that these are the sort of services that are under advanced data protection. So you've got device backup, messages backup, iCloud Drive, notes, photos, reminders, Safari bookmarks, Siri shortcuts, voice memos, and wallet passes. I think those first 5, device backup, messages, iCloud Drive, notes, and photos, are probably the most important ones. Like photos for sure. Not that, I mean, that's probably the most like important information I have in iCloud, is just thousands of photos that I would absolutely hate to have be deleted somehow by, I guess, someone. I don't know. But also device backups are really nice too, if you've got some app data on there that, you know, you want to make sure that sticks around or whatever. So, and then the next page, it says in like title font size, it says, "You will be responsible for your data recovery because Apple will not have the keys required to recover your data." So
I think if you delegate someone else to have access to your account, they can also like give you access back. So that's like an ideal solution for families. But if you're a loner like Spencer, then that might not work out for you as well.
I have a family. I don't have a wife and kids, but I have parents and siblings, so I'm not that much of a loner. I just outside of my family and code completion, that's all. Okay. So in addition to advanced data protection, it's making it harder for accounts to be snooped on in the Messages app. This is a cool thing, I think. It says it will now allow users to log in to their Apple accounts with hardware-based security keys. There's one called Yubico. I've looked into those for like logging into my Mac. Ultimately, I didn't think it's a big deal to type in my password and stuff, but that's cool that they're dealing with hardware as well. This seems really, really well thought out. Obviously, I mean it's a security thing, so it must have been thought out long and hard, and I'm sure they've been working on it for a long time. But there's a lot of really cool stuff with this advanced data protection.
Yeah, and if you're interested in those security keys, it's basically like the Touch ID sensor on modern Mac keyboards. You might be wondering, hey, why doesn't Apple like offer that for regular people? Well, you can buy a security key, and that gives you the same thing. The addition here is you can use that same security key for not only your computer, but also your iCloud account itself, your Apple ID. So I think that's going to be pretty game-changing for those that need this, like journalists or other people that are under like high levels of scrutiny to not have data leak. And for everyone else, like we can benefit as a side of that. Like this only works for them if regular people use it too, because then it doesn't like instantly identify them as being the ones that are like the ones that have stuff to hide, if that makes any sense.
No, totally.
So I think it's good that all of iCloud is getting this. Anyone can go ahead and enable it. Yes, we're going to hear about people that lost everything as a result of turning on something like this. And I likely will not be turning it on for myself because I don't trust myself with all of that, despite having many levels of backup. Just because it's going, like, eventually I'm going to forget, and eventually it's going to be a real mess to recover. So I think for now, until that whole story gets a little more clean cut, and it becomes a little bit easier to recover things apart from like remembering a 28 character thing or remembering where you put a 28 character thing, then that's probably going to be when I start using all this kind of stuff. So it's for everyone, but not everyone has to use it, and I think that's the good balance to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Additionally, if you do choose to enable this, certain things will be disabled by default. So accessing anything on iCloud.com, for instance, will be disabled by default. So you can turn it back on, and this will allow your web browser, like the browser itself, to retain the keys temporarily. Right. So this can be a good plan B if you don't have I guess you would need your device to access your account. So I'm not too sure of like the main use case here, but I guess it would exist. I guess if you have a security key, then you can go to any terminal and like do things that way. But if you have to have your device, then you have your device on you, and that's the way you access iCloud. So there's no real use to access iCloud.com, I guess, unless you need a big screen. I'm not too sure what the utility is there. But also things like shared photo libraries, shared albums. I mean, iWork collaboration, so Pages, Keynote, those sorts of features will need keys for other people to access them. So those are also not encrypted by default, or they are encrypted, but Apple owns the keys. So it's as if they're not if Apple gets hacked. So that is something to consider with all this.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if it's really worth going into, but a lot of, I wouldn't say people, but organizations are not happy about this, which is kind of funny.
I think it is worth going into because the whole point of security is to benefit some individuals, right? Not everyone needs security. Most of our houses, for instance, are secured by a little piece of metal and some flaky wood. So it's like really trivial to like break into someone's house, but it gives us peace of mind that like the bad things are not going to happen, even though it doesn't really prevent anything, right? Whereas this is real security. Like if there's no way to get in with this level of key size and stuff like that. So it really does put a target on the people who choose to use this. And therefore it allows anyone to be a true criminal, quote unquote, if they choose to do nefarious things with this. Whereas previously a criminal could not necessarily go to this level all on their own. So this is something that law enforcement, for instance, is not really that jazzed about. But once again, if this benefits somebody, I think it's worth having. And if everyone can get those benefits, then it kind of protects the people who really need it, because they no longer have a target on them as, oh, I turned on the thing and no one else did. Well, they count right there. Whereas like otherwise, it's kind of hard to find in a sea of a whole bunch of individuals doing this for their own benefit, whether that's nefarious or not, right? So yeah, it's difficult to decide if like these things are morally acceptable. I think if they have any benefit towards anyone, I think it's beneficial for them to exist, regardless of how nefariously they can be used. Because at the end of the day, once something exists, it's going to exist. And it's up to us to kind of navigate that after the fact. Just that's how our culture works. So that's how we need to adapt to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anything that's made, let's take the internet for example, is a great source of utility for everyone. But of course, people are going to use it in a bad way. It's the same sort of principle, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think we've figured out how to navigate the internet in a way that protects most people. They're not clicking on pop-ups or whatever, and this, I suppose, is just another way of allowing more utility for everyone. But of course, people are going to use it in a bad way. And there was that whole case in San Bernardino a few years ago with, shooter had an iPhone, the government was trying to get into it. I mean, you're going to hear definitely more about that, but I think anyone's right to privacy is sort of a good thing in general.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Definitely.
Hard to navigate for sure.
In lighter news, the Foundation framework is becoming fully open source. And there are many levels to this that are worth digging into. But what does this mean for server-side Swift development?
Yeah, well, it'll be huge for server-side Swift. One of the pain points, I think it was pretty early on. It's been a hot minute since I've tried to use the open source version of Foundation, the this open source version of Foundation. I think it's Core Foundation. I can't remember. Is there were just things that you come to rely on in just iOS and macOS development, date or date components probably would be a better one, because I think date exists in the open one. Or I can't remember exactly what doesn't exist anymore. In that Core Foundation GitHub repository, it lists out what things are implemented, what things are partially implemented, and what things aren't. But there were just things that you kind of take for granted as an iOS developer as being available to you, but they weren't available to you in Vapor, and so you'd have to come up with either just writing some boilerplate code to make it work, or these contrived things that people have come up with to sort of mimic the functionality of whatever you're trying to do in Vapor, because they just weren't available to you, because potentially and most likely your Vapor code would be running on Linux on hosted on Heroku or something. So the ability to open source the entirety of Foundation means that in Vapor, you would have access to all of Foundation, and you wouldn't have to kind of deal with those pain points, and it would be even less of a barrier to get into Vapor development, because that transition from iOS to using Vapor would be pretty seamless, because, again, you'd have access to everything, and it would just work the same way. And I think a big thing that they talked about, I can't remember where it is in this article, or if it was in an article I shared earlier this week, was I don't think the implementations of Foundation itself and this Core Foundation open source version were necessarily the same. So you could potentially run into issues with, you assume that we'll say date components is the same for Foundation and Core Foundation, but maybe they missed that whole leap year thing or something like that, where it could not be exactly
identical.
So that would also be mitigated as well with this.
Yeah, so up until now, there was Core Foundation, which has always been open source. This is a C library that has underpinned both Foundation.Framework, which is an Objective-C private source library that Apple has distributed since macOS 10, basically, and since the next days. And a separate project called Core Libs Foundation, which is a Swift wrapper to all the C Core Foundation calls, but it was not complete. Namely, things like async URL session never made it over, and they just kind of sat there. And it left a lot of people wondering, hey, why is this just sitting there when it could seemingly be added? And it turns out it's because they were probably working on this, which is a complete rewrite of Foundation, but it's the same Foundation that Apple's using internally, and the one that is going to be open source. It's going to be 100% Swift, so no C code backing it. And that does mean that some things are not going to be available, but most things are going to have a common source, which anyone can, one, look into, and two, participate in improving if there is such a bug. I think not too long ago, within a week or two ago, there was a bug that someone identified in Set because they were doing the Advent of Code thing, and they just realized, hey, Set has a bug in intersection. So that is something that they did fix in Swift, but it was not available for immediate use because the Foundation library, the package, is not something you can just import into code. So that is something that this being open source does help tremendously, because one, it allows anyone to kind of poke around, and two, you don't need to be a C expert to mess around with this, and therefore you have a higher chance of success not messing up in that process, right? So there are a few goals with this. No more rap-seep code. There's going to be more granular, smaller packages. So if you don't need all of internationalization, blah, that's a hard word, then you don't need to kind of incorporate that library that has full Unicode support, for instance, because if you're doing an embedded system, that full Unicode support, that's like all your ROM, and then you're out. Whereas if you don't need that, then you can go ahead and do very cool things with very small code size, and that's where that benefit is. Similarly, there's going to be a new Objective-C compatibility package with a bunch of legacy APIs, which certain applications use. There's going to be another one for XML support, and so on and so forth. So this has really been broken down into several use cases rather than being an all-encompassing library. But since it is a Swift library, it doesn't need to compile all that C code and give it to you. You can go ahead and just cherry pick what you need, and the compiler will be smart enough to only include what you need in line, and you'll be done from there. You don't need to necessarily have the whole library at your disposal if you only need a subset of it. So I think this is a really cool thing. It was announced at the Server-Side Swift conference. It's a one-day conference that's held in London. I think it happened like last weekend as we record this. So if you want to see similar cool things like this get announced in the future, go check that out as well. It will probably happen again next year. And I'm definitely looking forward to the videos out of this year's coming out relatively soon. So yeah, lots of exciting things.
Yeah. And kind of as a final note with this, it says, this also achieves an important community goal, which is an open contribution process, which is exciting to... I don't know, and I haven't really ever checked to see if like when new things are added to Foundation at the closed source version. But I mean, we look at the evolution of Swift as it was open sourced, and it's, exploded. Everyone has great ideas, and it's really become this very popular, very powerful language that we all love. So having Foundation kind of have that same treatment would be exciting to have, just, sort of, I don't know what you call it, sort of added functionality, not to the language, but specifically for Foundation itself. I'm excited to see what people come up with and add to this framework.
Definitely. Another area where Apple is adding more things is price points for apps in the App Store. So now you can have a 29-cent subscription. Currently it's limited to subscriptions. It's coming soon to everything else, but they added over 700 new price points. But what this actually means is you have new baseline points, like 29 cents, and then you can go up by 10-cent increments up to like $10, and then from there $5 increments up to 100 or something. 50s.
Yeah,
and then 50s from there. So
sorry. Yeah, they've got a good we'll link to this Apple Newsroom article, but they've got a good kind of graphic that the price steps are like 10 cents up to a point, 50 cents up to a point, $1 up to a point, $5, $10, and $100. Yeah, cool. And then they
looking forward to those subscriptions. Yay.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it.
I think what I'm most excited about is you're no longer limited to $4.99. You can now just $5.
Yes.
Goodbye abusive pricing mechanics, and you can just have a simple, straightforward thing that's easy for people to read. And you can customize it per region, which is super cool. So that way everywhere can be $5, €5, 500 yen. and so on and so forth. And then you can pick and choose your battles with currency rates yourself, and not just need to rely on Apple to do that for you. Which, frankly, I'll probably rely on Apple to do that for me, because that seems like the more sane option. But if you choose, like, I like this $5 style, then the currency conversions are going to pick a similar style automatically for you, so that way it doesn't lead to like really weird pricing in some regions over others.
Yeah, like Dimitri mentioned, you've got like the different I guess cent conventions, or like sub whatever currency conventions. So you've got like .99, .0, .90, .95. And all of those have kind of a highest supported price, which is I don't really understand why, but yeah, kind of cool. Yeah, if anything, I like Dimitri. I'm excited for just the flat like integer value of of an app instead of having 99 or whatever. So that's nice.
Yeah, and another change that's coming with all this is you can now ask for like higher price points. So if you really want to make some moolah off of the App Store, then you can ask Apple nicely, and they will give you access to these higher price points. So the I Am Rich app can make a return.
Yeah, that was what, $9.99 or $800 or something?
$999.
Yeah, this now the highest supported price is $10,000.
That's per month on a subscription.
Yeah. I don't know what that's, dude, I Starlink on a yacht is $5,000 a month. You could do 2 Starlinks on a yacht with a subscription like that. That's nuts.
Hey, 10 gigabit internet to my house, according to AT&T, is also $5,000 a month.
There you go.
So
okay.
I could choose, do I want to pay for internet or do I want to pay for my house? Those are the options that are available.
Oh my god.
Or I guess in this third case, or do I want to pay for Flappy Bird's Super Premium Edition for $10,000 a month?
There you go. Super Premium. It's
Super
gold.
Premium.
Everything is gold.
Oh, only playable on a gold iPhone. They do the check. If you don't have a gold iPhone, then you're out of the club. Which I ironically do, because I thought it would look nice with the orange.
That's right.
It doesn't even look nice, so I am never buying a gold iPhone again, unless the gold becomes orange, I guess.
Lesson learned.
The orange on the iMac is like so nice. It's so not gold, but Apple refuses to put that on anything else, so I'm so glad I got that iMac, because it is very nice looking, and it is my favorite orange.
They knocked it out of the park with all of the iMac colors. They all look so good.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any more.
No, big bummer. Sad.
Big bummer. In similar news to iMacs being awesome, the M2 Max is coming back to the headline. So we have a bit of a deprecation warning from our last episode where we talked about them being fast. Turns out they're faster. So they're not quite there at the Intel 1300K, whatever model number Intel likes to use. But they're definitely over the 2000 mark on the Geekbench single core scores. And that's pretty darn exciting, I would say.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, 2027 single core score and a 14,888. That's pretty fast, man. And I think more exciting. Well, I mean, that's exciting, but that was for the Mac 14, 6 identifier, which we were kind of assuming was probably a MacBook Pro. This is then there's now a Mac 15.4 or 4. So maybe this is the 9to5 Mac's kind of thinking that this is maybe another unreleased M2 powered Mac, or like a Mac Studio, or perhaps even another different MacBook model. I mean, it would make sense that it would be like a Mac Studio. I don't know.
Yeah,
we kind of talked about that last time too, but
and we don't really know what the Geekbench scores for the Mac 15,4 is. All we know that it showed up on Steam's hardware and software survey for November. And this is just like an automatic thing that Steam collects and that they publish every month. And it allows you to see like what people are using to play games via Steam specifically. So Mac representation is low, to say the least. But if these devices are showing up, that likely means that Apple is testing with various games to see what the real world performance is like on their new machine. So that is very cool that we are going to be getting new Macs soon. It doesn't look likely that we'll be getting them in 2022 anymore, considering there's only a few weeks left. But definitely in 2023, there's going to be some excitement to be had. I wonder, because when the M1 Macs were just coming out, they were basically at the top of the charts for the single core scores. Do you think that Apple is noticing that Intel and AMD are kind of like using all the energy to get as high as a score there as possible, and just might flex a little bit on the next year's Mac Studio or whatnot to kind of have it use a little bit more energy to like really outperform the competition?
I think it's possible. I think one thing that Apple definitely has going for it is the, I guess I should say, lack of power consumption, where I don't know how much power consumption your Mac Studio uses, but it's most definitely not. Yeah. Maybe at the highest end, maybe 80 watts or something. I don't know. But for example, the Intel and I think actually AMD, the latest chips that have kind of just recently released, they get up to like easily 200 watts plus. If you're going kind of hardcore, but they do get up to like 6 gigahertz, which is crazy, and not including talking about IPC or anything. So if Apple, I don't know how accurate it is. Let's see if it shows it on this.
3.6,
so
I think, right?
Yeah, 3.68 gigahertz. So they're not boosting to the same clock speed as AMD and Intel are, but their IPC is great. So if they come out with like the M2 Extreme, that because of its beefy cooling or whatever, and it goes to 5 gigahertz with its IPC, I think it would blow it out of the water for sure. So not to mention, I don't know how it'd be interesting. I don't know if you've looked into this, but to see how hot your M1 Ultra gets under like a Cinebench load, if there's thermal headroom with the current coolers.
There definitely is. The fans don't do anything.
Okay.
They just stay on at the same level that they're on when the thing is off, and that's that. So there's definitely, like, you could put one of these chips in a Mac Mini and just have the fans rev up, and that'd be totally fine, because that's what it is in a MacBook Pro. Like, it's this thin, and the fans rev up. So I think the Mac Studio was Apple's like experiment of, hey, what if the fans never turned like on appreciably? Like, they need to be on for the power supply, so we'll just let them be there. But they're not going to ever like make a noise that you'll like reasonably identify. And it seems that they've succeeded in that goal. So now we're likely going to see those same chips end up in Mac Minis that can make some noise. Because not everyone needs a super quiet Mac. If you need the super quiet one, go for the Ultra. If you just need the small form factor, you can go for the Mini, and it's going to make some noise. That's the trade-off, right? And on the Ultra, maybe now that can give it the headroom where you have an option for high power and low or low noise, and you can get the higher power if you really want it. At that given moment in time, or if you're recording a podcast, you set it to low noise, and then that is not going to ever get in your way. So I think that's something that Apple can consider when they're like making these new Macs, especially for next year, and especially since the M2 seems to want to use more power if it can, right? And it will make more noise as a result, or it will thermally throttle on like the MacBook Airs that don't have any fans. Like, that is going to be the case if you really, really push it. And I think it'll be good for the Mac to have those options available to it. Yeah,
I just kind of my final thoughts. I think we talked about this in one of the last episodes, but I said I wasn't, particularly motivated to move from like an M1 MacBook Air to an M2 MacBook Air because the performance is like negligible. I think in here it said it was like 11% or something. I can't remember. It's not a ton. Yeah.
Year over year, you're really going to notice it, but just
sure.
Like after several years, you'll really notice it. But like 1 year to the next, it's like, eh.
Yeah, like do it every 2 or 3 years, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if they're just like, yeah, let's let this thing run wild and give it, like, if it has the ability to boost higher but make some noise, then that would be motivating for me to be like, oh yeah, I'll totally do that. And maybe get a MacBook Pro that actually has a fan so I can take advantage of that when I'm, I don't know, compiling code using Blender sometime when I get around to learning Blender. I don't know. But the option there, like you said, would be cool where like Windows has, you can choose these like power plans. So you can say like, yeah, have it be pretty balanced with performance and energy usage, or just like high power, just like boost all the time until
Please
it thermal
melt
throttles.
my GPU.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but the option to do that in system preferences, or what do they call it now? System settings. I hate it. Could be there. So.
Yeah, I mean, for the laptops, they have it, right? They have more power or more power efficiency. More performance or more power or more power efficiency. More performance or more power efficiency. So I think for the desktop, that use case is probably going to be like more silent or more powerful. Then you can choose what you want for any given workflow, and that would be ideal. I was going to say, I think the Mac Studio uses less than any one of the monitors that is plugged into it.
Probably.
Just in terms of like the maximum that it can go ahead and use. Probably more if you plugged in a bunch of Thunderbolt stuff and each of those Thunderbolt things used like the maximal power that they can. Like then that's a different equation. But the actual machine itself, very, very little, which is very ironic considering that the monitors are plugged into it eat up vastly more power just because they're turning it into light. So little guy turning calculations into heat is more efficient than the big guy turning things into light. It turns out
1600 nits. That's kind of a lot of light.
I mean, even the LG 5Ks I think use more power.
Oh yeah, probably actually.
So power for everyone. This week's episode of Code Completion is once again brought to you by Bon Voyage. Bon Voyage is a full-stack iOS development course from Johnny B. With this course, you'll learn how to build both a full iOS client app and an associated React web integration application. The app and the site will integrate via Firebase, as well as Stripe and Plaid for payment processing. Bon Voyage is a place to book extravagant vacations, and you'll gain the skills to build the iOS app from the ground up and integrate everything you need to provide a world-class vacation booking experience. To find out more and sign up for the course, visit bonvoyage.app/course. That's bon-voyage.app/course, and be sure to follow Bon Voyage's instructor at Johnny B Codes. That's JONNYBCODES. on Twitter to stay up to date with all his courses. Thanks again to Bon Voyage e-commerce app course for sponsoring Code Completion. Minor thought on faster Macs and building a React web app. Turns out things like Xcode are pretty darn fast for app development and development in general, and doing any sort of web development where you need to use like Yarn and Node and all those package things. Those really benefit from single core performance because they're not at all like multi-core prepared. So Apple, if you can double those single core scores, then you will make a whole bunch of developers really, really happy to use all that. Just saying.
That makes sense.
And on that note, Spencer, I've got a code completion tip for you.
Okay.
Have you ever built or written an enum? And this is a string-based enum where you have like a whole bunch of options, and then you have like an other option, and you needed like it to handle any other case, right? You've probably seen something similar to that.
Yep.
Well, there's a much better way, and that is to create a struct and conform that struct to raw representable. So raw representable is a very convenient protocol that allows any struct to basically behave kind of like an enum, except an unbounded enum. So you can have any value in there whatsoever. And what you do is you can declare all your cases as static lets. So static let case 1 equals and as a string, you can specify something. Case 2 equals this. Case 3 equals that. And this doesn't just work for strings. It works for anything that you can represent under the hood as a raw value. And it translates automatically when you use it with Codable to the raw value. So whatever that raw value is, that will automatically get translated. It translates back. You can have failing initializers for it. So yeah, raw representable is like the general kind of solution to enums that don't have like a finite number of cases. And it's much better than writing an enum where you have a bunch of cases and then you have a final case called other that takes like an associated value. This will just allow you to like have all your cases and then not need to have that other case. So you can still represent other cases very easily. They're just not named according to your raw representable thing. So definitely recommend people check that out if you ever run into that sort of situation before.
Very cool. I will try that one out.
For our mini review corner today, we have something very different. And this started off as a Kickstarter, the company already existed, but they did a Kickstarter recently for the Iconic Pillow Collection #2. And you might be wondering, like, what on earth is this about? Well, there's a company called Throwboy, which absolutely does not make copyright infringing pillows of our favorite products. But turns out they do. And this is the 1983 pillow. I think that's just what it's called. It's definitely not called the Lisa pillow. In fact, there is absolutely no Apple logo on this. There's just a pillow logo on this, which is very cute. So if you're not watching this on YouTube right now, go like switch over to the YouTube one if you can, because I'm showing these pillows off. But yeah, this is a very squishy, very comfortable pillow. I have several other Throwboy pillows. I have like a Finder icon, which is absolutely not a Finder icon, and I have a Spinny Beach Ball of Doom icon as well. But yeah, so this is the first of their Iconic Pillow Collection 2, the 1993. And yeah, it has all the ports in the back. Yeah. Like it is detailed. All the vents, the expansion slots, the floppies, and the screen. It's very cute.
That's cute.
So that's the first of these. Spencer, I hear you have these as well?
Yes, I do. I have the 2000 pillow, which is shaped like a G4 cube, and it's got the vent and everything, and again, like the IO is just like immaculately represented. It's so cool. They're really soft too, and they feel really nice, but the kind of attention to detail and everything is cool. And instead of the Apple logo, it's just a pillow, but it's really cool. Ironically, it's almost the exact same size as a G4 cube. So that's kind of cool.
Yep. Next up on this, definitely not copyright infringement, is the 1999 pillow, which opens.
It's so
and
cool.
it kind of stays open at the right angle. It doesn't really plop too far. It has a trackpad. It has a keyboard. It has a screen with a very large bezel. Definitely not an Apple logo right there. The handle, unfortunately, does not come out. You do have this little mini handle to kind of tie the difference. But you do get all the ports on the side. I think on this side as well. So you got your USB. Wow, that was a game changer. This USB plug. But yeah, it opens and closes. It's so cute.
That's awesome. I love that one. Yes, I also have the 2003 pillow, which is modeled after a G5, which Power Mac G5, which I have like 3 of them at my house. One is a Hackintosh, but I just like that. I've had plans for some, but again, just very kind of immaculate details and stuff. And the vents and everything, and all the I/O and stuff.
DVI ports.
Yep, the DVI ports up here is so cool. Yeah, awesome. And the cheese grater, it's just printed on, but looks pretty dang good. So yeah, those are the only two that I have, but I'm super stoked with both of them. They look really cool. So yeah.
Yep. And to finish it off, we have the 2002 pillow, which is an iMac G4 in its super jankiest state. It will like just plop over, so like you have to if you want to present it, you have to hold it by its neck, kind of like an anchored goose. But this is the computer I was fawning over as a kid. Like I really wanted this computer. But then the iMac G5 had to come out, and that's when I got, which I really loved for a long time. But yeah, look, it has like all the ports. I love it.
It's so
much.
Cool.
It is so perfect. The you can rotate the monitor. True.
So
True
janky.
fashion.
I love it.
It's just kind of like flopping all over the place. It kind of holds itself. Oh no, there it goes. So, yeah, like there's a surprising amount of thought and effort that went into these.
Yeah.
So they don't come cheap, unfortunately. They are like $44 a pillow, $43.99 I think. But they are definitely comfortable and fluffy, and great to have around. Definitely
Yeah.
if you're a fan of a particular company, definitely worth kind of checking them out, I would say.
Yeah. I the first time I saw a G5 was I went to my dad's work one day, and he works at like a printing company, and the designers were using G5s. And so that was like ingrained into my memory as like the one that I wanted, like way before. That was even before my family really used Macs. We used Windows for a long time. I was maybe 10 at that point. I don't know. Let's see, 2003. Yeah, something like that. So that one was like, I was so stoked to, get the pillow, but also just like make a Hackintosh and stuff. That's the cheese grater was always like kind of, I don't know. It was special in my heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think my mom still has a like Power Mac G5 cheese grater before they called them the Mac Pros.
Right.
And it like all the cooling leaked and it eroded the whole bottom of the thing. Yeah, so the computer is like forever irreparable, I feel like. It still looks nice, which is neat. But yeah, I hear the coolant like destroyed a fair amount of those over time. Just because water cooling,
they're
not the greatest.
Yep. Yeah.
Turns out passive cooling is like going to be indestructible going forward. I have a feel like.
Yeah. Just so you know, if you're listening to this and you want to get these, like Dimitri said, they're like $43 a piece, but I paid $54 for two for their Kickstarter. So if they ever do another one, follow them on Kickstarter, and they're sort of proven. So I wouldn't necessarily think it's much of a risk. I've definitely backed things on Kickstarter and never got my stuff, but I think this is a pretty sure deal if they make like an M series collection or something with like the Mac Studio. That'd be super cool. So
yeah, definitely. Oh, just imagine how janky the new iMacs are going to be. Everything's going to be so thin. I
super
think
thin.
This works because it's accurate.
Yes.
It was.
Yes, exactly.
Thing. Like, we're joking, like, nowadays of, like, computers are getting thinner and thinner. This is how thick a laptop used to be. It was so thick you could make a pillow out of it.
And it was, like, size accurate, dimensionally accurate.
Yeah, like, that's just insane that things have gone so thin and, like, bendable to the point where, like, you can bend it. Like, that didn't exist back then. So, yeah. Technology is really exciting when you look back on it. And you, stop concentrating on, like, oh, it's just 11% since improvement over the years. Like, no, we have freaking supercomputers compared to the past. It is insane.
You're right. I need to not be so full of hubris and... Yeah.
As always, I want to personally thank everyone for listening in this week. Please be sure to follow us on Twitter or on mastodon.social at codecompletion to know when new episodes go live, and feel free to tweet at us if there's ever a topic you'd like for us to dig into. Most importantly, as a small podcast, please be sure to share this with your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development. It's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we discuss. Once again, I want to give my thanks to Spencer, who is at Spencer C. Curtis, that's SpencerCurtis, for joining me this week. My name, once again, is Dimitri. You can find me at Dimitri Buniol, that's DimitryBouniol, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Right. So now we can go back to the Game Awards. This fascinating time once a year where everyone in the community gets back together to discuss what were the most popular games in December. So joking, it seems like they did a better job at like evening it out a little bit better, where it's like the games that came out in January were still like not forgotten. But it's still a popularity contest. It's still just like, hey, these are the big games that paid a lot of money to have their promotion on last year's Game Awards, so we're going to go ahead and give them a lot of focus this year, kind of thing. But yeah, I'd say it was interesting.
Yeah, it was really long. I watched the whole. I think we both watched.
They're always really long.
This is the first time I've watched like the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I've usually just tuned into like the game of the year, which is at like the end of like this 3-hour ordeal. Mm-hmm. You know, and they it's cool because they put out a bunch of awards for like best indie game, and like, you know, it's not just like the best AAA big budget game, but they go into, you know, they kind of highlight like most anticipated game and big, you know, best indie game and
Breath
stuff.
Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, yeah.
But that's coming out in May,
Ragnarok.
Yeah, so it ended up just being a hate fest on God of War Ragnarok because I've never played the game, and I wanted Elden Ring to win. I know they won like everything, but I wanted Elden Ring to win everything because I love that game.
But they did win.
But they did win 3 things, including Game of the Year, which I am stoked about because I think it deserves it. And also mostly it's self-serving because I want the development team to keep working on DLC because I want more. There's a lot of that game that is unexplained, and I like the way that Elden Ring does story, which is very kind of subtle, and you have to search it out. And by search it out, I mean go to YouTube and watch videos on people who have done the hard work in searching it out and looking through game files and looking at architecture and all this stuff and decoding the Latin in the music and stuff. So there's a lot to it, which is cool, but it's way more work than I'm gonna do. So I just watch the YouTube videos on it, and those channels have a lot of subscribers because a lot of people are interested in it. So Game Awards ultimately was a cool thing for me, even if it was a long evening. Yeah,
the reason I watched it both last year and this year in its entirety is I was hoping deeply for some Tears of the Kingdom hot content. But yeah, what you mentioned before about like people going and like describing it all on YouTube. I live for those analysis videos that come out whenever like a trailer comes out for like a new Zelda game, mostly because there's some very surprising people that come out of the woodwork to like help out on those. For instance, on the latest Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom trailer, there's a lot of this Gerudo kind of text that's everywhere. And no, this has never been like, these can either be random or they can actually say something, and there isn't like a chart to tell you what it says. Yeah. So then out of the woodwork, you have cryptanalysis coming in and being like, well, if we're going to look at not only English, but Japanese like word patterns, then we can guess that these characters come out with these sounds and it means this in Japanese. And if you use this guess, you can extrapolate from that and then decode this whole new area and then like fill in the holes there. And then like you have the whole story. And of course, they're not leaking anything of substance. It's just like pure extra flavor text for the story itself. And like,
it builds hype for like
building a lot of hype. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, most people aren't going to care, but, like,
No,
if you're
not at
watching
all.
those videos, you're like, give me this game, dude.
Lots of anticipation, to say the least. So, yeah, I definitely sat through the entire Game Awards. I learned a lot about other video games because I don't play other video games. I learned that Ragnarok is the game to play because that's the one that won
Apparently.
everything.
Yeah.
And I also learned that they need to give like time limits to people saying thanks on stage because it seems like that can go on forever in certain situations. And they also probably need to like be a little careful about who can walk on stage. Otherwise, mean old Rabbi Bill Clinton is going to come and do something. I wasn't too sure what was going on there.
That was nuts.
But it just happened. And that's the Game Awards, I guess.
Yep. Definitely look that up if you're interested. It was kind of crazy after the Game of the Year. The From Software development team went up, including the director of Elden Ring. Some kid just walked up and talked about
Very
his
confident.
very confident. It was like Reformed Orthodox Jewish Rabbi Bill Clinton, and everyone was like,
What?
What? Okay. And then the host of the Game Awards tweeted that he had been arrested, and it's like a whole thing. I think he's now been interviewed and stuff. So yeah, kind of interesting.
Like, I'm sure there was some sort of like very bad message behind whatever he was trying to say, so we shouldn't be making light of it. But at the same time, like, practice first, because otherwise no one's gonna have any clue what you're trying to like protest or like push. I think at that moment in time.
I think I saw somewhere that he's like done the same thing at like, it was like a League of Legends show or something. Like, he's done this multiple times, just walking up on stage and saying random stuff. So I don't know if there was like, one of them was like protesting something in China at like an NBA game. I can't remember. He has like a history of doing this, though, is the point. So kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe don't allow random people on stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we were saying before, if someone's gonna misuse something, they can misuse it, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean we have to like bulk up security and all that unless it becomes a pattern. But yeah, it's just our world is inherently insecure in one way or another. But yeah, I guess if you want to have a fun evening in December next year, go watch the Game Awards. It's always entertaining in one way or another. Never in the way it intended. No.
I mean, you'll see some exciting announcements for some stuff. Again, hopefully for like Breath of the Wild. I don't know if this was public before the Game Awards. I didn't know about it, but Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom.
I did the same thing like 4 times.
Tears of the Kingdom, it's coming out in May of next year. So that's like 6 months from now. Not that long of a wait.
May
now
12th.
that we've been waiting 5 years. But I don't know. Now that we actually know a little bit about it and stuff, it doesn't feel like a huge wait. So that's exciting.
Yep. Metroid Prime is still 12 months out, but
ooh, yeah.
Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom,
Priorities.
which on my Amazon order is still listed as Breath of the Wild 2. It is just under or just over 5 months out. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah. That'll be taking the day or week off of work and just blasting through that.
Week. I'm going to be taking a good 2-week vacation for that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You all will be getting pre-recorded episodes. As
There we go.
I will be busy.
Nothing will interrupt Mitri.
Well, Spencer, I'm giving you the opportunity to play too. You just have to ask for the same 2 weeks off, right?
I'll be playing. Both play. Don't worry. I'll probably do the same thing.
Playing and working? I can't. I can't do that.
Yeah, especially when it's like right on your mind. It was hard to do that for Elden Ring, and when it came out, I spent the first 2 or maybe 3 weeks. It was like anytime I wasn't working, I was playing that game for like literally 8 hours a day, and then sleeping, then working, then playing straight. Got up to 200 hours pretty dang fast on that game.
Nice. Okay. See y'all next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.